I receive a very common question from spiritual seekers. And the question is that I feel disillusioned and disinterested in everything after spiritual awakening. And they say that I felt as if once this awakening happens, I would be in a state of perpetual bliss. And all my life's sorrows, miseries, and whatever I'm facing will just disappear. On the contrary, I feel more confused. I feel episodes of euphoria at some times, and the other times I feel the depressive lows. So my life has become this flip-flop, this roller coaster of pain and pleasure. What do I do? How do I live my life? How do I regain interest in things? How do I find the true meaning and true purpose of life? And my reply to that is, first of all, let's bring our attention to this seeking entity, the seeker. Who is the seeker? What is the nature of this seeker? Why does it want to find meaning? What meaning is he or she looking for? And what does this entity wants to gain by finding the meaning? Now we know that we live in three-dimensional reality, which is governed by the opposites. So every pleasure accompanies pain with it. You can have the best of things, but they will come with the deepest troubles in life. Most people dream of wealth, success, money, power, fame, adulation, admiration, success in relationships, and so on. But what they forget is that we are living in duality. So even if these things are attained through effort, through brute force, somehow, there will be accompanied pain equal to the magnitude, if not less, or probably maybe even more than the pleasure that is experienced. And tell me honestly, has that not been your experience? Every pleasure that you fought for, that you aspired for, came with pain. At one point, you wanted to have one particular job, one particular business profile, one particular idea of success in your mind. And it happened. Then what? Did it bring you perpetual bliss? No, it did not. On the contrary, the illusion, you saw the nature of illusion, and you saw pain seeping in from the very pores in the happiness. You saw that they all come with their own problems. At other time, you wanted a particular person in your life. So you manifested or you worked hard to get them in your life. And then what happened? You imagined a perfect life with them. But the facade of that perfection was also broken. In some cases, the person left. In other cases, the person did not leave but became a constant pain point in your life. So you see, you cannot separate the happiness with the unhappiness. Everything that is attained through effort, through doing, will come accompanied with unhappiness. So what is the way out? out of this confusion of disinterest and disillusionment with everything. So first of all, see where the disillusionment is happening. The disillusionment, the root of it is the separate self or this me entity that says, I am disillusioned with what spiritual awakening has brought me. So first thing to understand is that the awakening does not happen to a person. Awakening is the crack or the breakdown in the personality, in the persona, where truth is glimpsed. And in that glimpse, this crack begins to widen and the personality begins breaking down as the time proceeds. But since there has been a crack in the personality, a personality that has been crafted for years, for decades, through a lot of conditioning, through childhood conditioning, from parents, through education, school, through friends, through families, by watching romantic movies, by reading romantic novels, and envisioning an ideal relationship, an ideal job, an ideal life. But then the disappointment shows up, the disillusionment shows up, as there is a crack in this whole structure, which is the persona, which is the separation from the rest. The idealistic image of oneself as with the idea that if one attains this, acquires that, one will be perfect. And this not only happens in the material world, this is very much prevalent in the so-called spiritual circles also today. In the name of spirituality, we run after a perfect state. Because we sit in meditation and we experience peace for certain moments, we start craving that state of blankness. Now, I'm not against meditation, and I think it is a great practice. But at the end of the day, if you stick to the idea of keeping your mind numb to avoid life, then you're not truly meditating. Meditation truly means recognition of this presence that illuminates the persona. The personality, the persona is false structure with ideas, beliefs, thoughts, ideologies, strong opinions, convictions. I am this, I am that, I belong to this religion, my religion is the best. I belong to that sect, my sect is the best. I work in this organization, this is the best organization in the world. I am the best, I am this, I am that. And that is the story of the pain. So why is it hurting now? Because now this whole image that had been crafted since childhood is beginning to crumble. These false narratives, these walls, these huge walls, these idealistic images, idealistic fantasies are now beginning to crumble. They're beginning to break. So mind, having cracked, is unable to absorb this truth that it is a piece of fiction, that there is really no mind, that there is no person that awakens. But awakening is all there is. So, when the person claims that they are awakened, that itself indicates that awakening has not really yet happened, because the sense of separateness is strong. But when it is realized that awakening has happened, and not that I have awakened, and that my old world is just crumbling right in front of my eyes, my relationships are dissolving, the ones I cherished, the friendships that I cherished, the people that I thought were my support, my pillars of strength, abandoning me. When all of that begins to break down, It is painful. Yet the pull of the bliss of the glimpse of light, pure light of consciousness is so strong that one simply disregards what is false and moves in the direction of light. As this light, this presence within us becomes stronger, we become more and more aware, we become more conscious, and we become more spontaneous in our actions. That means we experience highs and lows of life, but we do not get caught up in them. We experience momentary pain, we experience momentary pleasure, but we do not get caught up in any of them. So when the pain happens, I don't say, "Oh my God, my life is horrible. Why, God, why did you do this to me? Why did they do this to me?" There is no externalization. There is no blaming the other for one's condition at a given moment. And when there is pleasure, there is no craving of pleasure. I want this again and again. I want the repeat of it. I can't do without it. One simply enjoys in the moment. One enjoys pleasure in the moment. One accepts pain in the moment. But we cling to none. And that is the true deliverance of the spiritual awakening. But when it starts, for most people, when the awakening, when the crack happens, it is usually very painful and it is very normal. It is very, it is something that happens with most people, that they lose interest in all the things they loved earlier. They don't feel like engaging in hobbies. They don't feel like talking to people. Some extroverts become introverts. They don't feel like reading books. They don't feel like watching movies. They don't feel like doing work. Sometimes they just want to sit idle for long periods. And they are judged for it. You see? But here's the thing. Their mind is in constant self-reflection. And that is the difference between awakening and depression. In depression, the mind is not in self-reflection. The mind is completely drowned in its own misery. Why me? Why am I not understood? It is constantly drowned in one direction of lows and lows and lows. And that continues. In awakening, it's not like that. One does experience this high. One does get so fascinated by the glimpse of pure light that one wants to experience it again. So it happens that we sit idle for long hours sometimes. Doing nothing, not even meditation. Just being completely open to whatever is arising in the given moment. And that becomes our spiritual practice. That becomes the sadhana, which is misunderstood by most people because most people are habituated to doing. They have not yet realized they are being. So they are completely tuned to doing. They find their worth only in doing. And in doing, they create karma. And then their mind makes them believe that there is a good karma, there is a bad karma. And they are eternally trapped in this cycle of good and bad. What should my diet be? How should I live? I should not hurt anyone. They set up such idealistic principles. They're completely unaware and unconscious and not living life entirely. They're completely living a fantasy, the programming that is deep embedded in their psyche. In awakening, something entirely different happens. Those old beliefs, those deep imprints of what reality is, the blueprint that society handed. So society said, no, you should live your life like this. You should have a good career. You should have a good family. You should take care of your children. You should do this. You should do that. You should work for the society. And those are all good things. But you do see the illusion behind it. You do not believe in its concreteness. You see that such ideas, idealistic ideas, are coming from conditioned minds, from the minds that are still unconscious and who think that this 3D reality is all there is, who have not waken up to their nature, which is subtle, which is pure light. And they think that the physical and dense is the only reality. So they are so identified with their body. When I say body, I include the mind in it. And they have such rigid views of life. It can be one's parents. Such rigid views. I followed the blueprint like this in my life. Step A, B, C. This is what you must do. Only then the happiness is guaranteed. Now in my case, when I came to this realization that happiness comes attached with unhappiness, I started questioning that. I said, tell me one thing. What is it that eventually I am seeking? And the answer was usual. Well, settled life, comfortable life. Okay, what is comfortable life going to give me? Well, happiness. What is happiness? Then they would say happiness is just, earning a lot of money by working hard all your life and then sitting in your garden after retirement and watching sunsets. And then I said, why do I have to wait for retirement to do that? Why can't I just sit outside with a chair and watch the sunset? Is it going to be more beautiful when I watch it after retirement? I probably won't be able to see the sun, even the sun, because of weak eyesight at that time. At least now I can enjoy the nature, see how everything is flowing. So if the ultimate objective is to find happiness, peace in non-doing, then why cannot I not do right now and just be still and present with whatever is happening? Completely accept what is flowing rather than fighting life. So this is why we feel disillusioned and disinterested after spiritual awakening, because the conditioned mind habitually begins to fight life. No. You are in the wrong direction. You are eventually going to lose this, lose that in life. You won't have a fulfilling life. That is the fear. So mind conditioned to fear still reacts in unconscious ways until this light of presence begins to increase and begins to melt all these illusory structures to reveal the beingness from within, which is infinite, which is vast, which does not require external conditions to be a certain way. This beingness is a reality that never changes. It is the witness of all that is changing. And spiritual awakening is the dawn of witnessing the recognition of this beingness or I amness. You have used thought as an instrument to figure out life, to understand what is good and what is bad in life. Tell me one thing. Has there been an absolute goodness or absolute evilness anywhere in this world? Is there one agency that is responsible for all evil? Even if you talk about, mass violence, is there one entity that is responsible for it? Or is it the whole phenomena that happens? And similarly with the goodness, Is there an absolute goodness which takes away all the poverty in the world? Which takes away all the pain in the world? Which takes away all ailments, all diseases, all unhappiness in the world? Does such a power exist in phenomenality? The answer is no. Relief happens. True peace happens when one recognizes one's own nature as peace, as beingness, which is here and now. In that, this knowledge comes, this insight comes. Now, this knowledge is not based on past experience, it is an instantaneous recognition. And it says, every happiness comes attached with unhappiness. Whatever you acquire externally will eventually be lost, whether it is a relationship, person, job, thing, eventually it will be lost. What is that that was never gained and that will never be lost? The answer to this question takes away all the pain, all the suffering that happens after awakening. It is the final answer. What is that which stays as the eternal witness and remains unaffected from what is happening externally? When that is realized, this whole question of trying to find a meaning in life disappears. One becomes completely receptive to life. That means whatever goals come in my way, I just work towards them. And goals will flow because that's the nature of life. So rather than artificially trying to run after a goal, which is completely not in alignment with one's own structure, with one's own core beliefs, will eventually bring more and more suffering. But when one is completely open, completely quiet, and completely receptive to life's flow, having given complete control to life, having surrendered completely to the flow of life, to flow to what is, then something miraculous happens. The goals show up and the corresponding actions also show up without the individual claiming to be the doer of actions, to be the accomplisher of goals. So one does not take pride in their so perceived achievements, or one does not create guilt or shame for, again, one's perceived failures. There are no failures or success. There is no such thing as an absolute failure and an absolute success. Because here's the thing, whatever goal you think right now is your ideal goal, the moment you achieve it, you will start running after another goal. Why? Because your mind is habituated to running. It does not want to stay here and now. Because staying quiet and still is death for mind, and mind is afraid of death. It wants drama. It wants entanglement. It wants involvement. Do this, do that. Then you will get this, then you will get that. Achieve enlightenment. Do sadhana for years. And then you will get the reward, you see. This is how the mind works. Yet in this whole movement, it is completely forgetting what is here and now. The perfect peace that exists right now will not be found in anything external. And that is the whole concept. That is what brings the mind to rest. And what is here and now is the unchanging principle, the witness that remains unaffected by anything that is happening externally. it does not mean that no pain will be experienced. Pain will be experienced in life. However, pain experienced in the moment will not become suffering in horizontal time. One will not live with the burden of shame, blame, guilt, or malice towards others. In this perfect harmony of recognition of one's being, of one's infinite nature, one lives completely authentically without trying to be a certain way. So it is recognized that this organism is uniquely programmed by the universe in a particular way. So there are natural choices for this organism. Choices in terms of choosing a person, choosing a job, choosing a work environment, or any other preferences. But it is according to the nature of how this entity is being programmed. And if a change happens, that is also accepted. So one flows naturally with life rather than trying to find the meaning, the absolute, the highest meaning of life. So there is no question of being disillusioned and disinterested by life. When one is completely flowing with life, these questions don't even appear. These questions appear when one offers resistance to life. I am disillusioned when I think I am separate from the rest. I am disinterested when I think I am not being understood by the others. I am completely disinterested and disillusioned when I think that things are not going according to my preferences. And that is the trap. So all that needs to be done is nothing but to just observe what is happening each and every moment and totally accept what the next moment brings, pleasure or pain. Then life becomes spontaneous. Then there is no preference. There is no strong identification with the outcome. One can have likes and dislikes, but there is no strong identification that things should be the way I want them to be. So if you are experiencing this phase in your life, which also in the classical scriptures have been called the dark night of the soul, all the suffering that is meant to happen will happen. Unfortunately, it cannot be avoided. Trying to clear this confusion through intellectual analysis by figuring out life, trying to make sense of things, and trying to find meaning in things will actually create more and more suffering. But when you surrender completely, that means when you completely understand that I know nothing and it is only the God or the cosmic law that executes this whole cycle of causation, and you completely surrender to that flow, then life becomes a blissful experience, anchored in peace. All the roller coasters and ups and downs are accepted in that. So me not being okay with the way things are in life is also included in that. But it is also known that this me is a fictional entity that suffers because it believes it is the doer of actions. Nobody is doing anything, everything is happening. Spiritual awakening is not an individual's doing. It does not happen through any doing. It is simply a happening, and it happens to no one. It is just consciousness experiencing itself as the consciousness. It's the game of one, played by the one, watched by the one, and enjoyed by the one. If this is understood, there is no question of any suffering.